Thank you very much for joining us here at the Network Breakfast. It is Tuesday morning, and we have our lovely and talented contestants here today, and we're going to talk about ransomware and how to avoid it. But first, we're going to introduce, each of us are going to introduce themselves, and they're going to say good morning to you and tell you who they are and how you can get a hold of them, and then we'll continue on, okay? All right, so first, we're going to start with Trina Gigax first. Good morning, Trina.
Well, good morning. I'm up first. Wasn't expecting that. My name's Trina Gigax. My company's Fresh Eyes Reading. I'm a freelance copy editor, some copywriting from scratch, but mostly editing. I work with material that's already written, marketing materials, brochures, newsletters, blogs, to improve your writing so that it's best for the reader. Many people just love to write, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's in the best form or position for a reader to understand it well, and that's what copy editing is. Trina at fresheyesreading.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Trina, and thank you for being here. It's so wonderful to have you here. Next, we're going to introduce, he's got his mic off, but let's get ready to hear from Jeff Hexter. Good morning, Jeff.
Now it's back on. I'm Jeff Hexter with Always Keeps Computing. I work with professionals working from their homes who are stuck with technology problems and don't know who to ask for help. I like it when their Wi-Fi isn't working and their printers aren't printing and their emails aren't sending. So if you know people with those kinds of problems, I get introduced to those people all the time, and I do what I can to help them. I actually got a referral from a health insurance company out in Akron the other day. They were talking with a social media person who was complaining about her Microsoft Outlook not functioning properly. And they said, "Do you have an IT person?" They said, "No, nobody wants to work with one-person companies." And she said, the person from the health insurance company said, "Yes, there is somebody who does. That would be
yes."
me." So I got that call, and the person discovered that she actually had heard about me before. She said, "Are you the one working with my best friend?" She threw out the name. I'm like, yes, I am. So I love working with those weird little problems, and that's what I do. Jeff Hexter, Always Keep Computing.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And yes, I've come across that too. Companies don't want to take on somebody to be their IT guy if they're the only guy in the company, because they may be on the west side and you're on the east side, and they'll have to wait for you to finish up or whatever. But it's worked out for me, and I know it's worked out for you. So thank you for being here, Jeff. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from, but not see, Ray Antonelli. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, everyone. I originate reverse mortgages for seniors. I specialize in that. I've been a licensed loan officer for 25 years, roughly, and it's an interesting process. Being licensed, I can originate any type of loan, but I specialize in reverse mortgages for seniors. It's about 85% of the reverse mortgages I originate, the seniors are literally going backwards every month. They're running out of money before the month ends, and a reverse mortgage basically fixes that almost instantly. The other 15% are more investment oriented, and they can take the funds and invest them in any way they choose and not have to pay them back until the home is actually sold. You can reach me at 216-337-7520. And I also joke with all of my clients and prospects that although I'm 69 and semi-retired, I still answer my phone till 9 p.m. every evening because I don't dig ditches for a living. I just talk on the phone. So it's not a big deal. And of course, my email address has not changed since 2004. It's so easy I can remember it, ray100@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Ray. Thanks for being here. Next, we'd like to hear from Chris Walters. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Walters with See-Through Windows. I provide vinyl replacement and new construction windows. I cover a territory from Port Clinton to the Pennsylvania border, Cleveland to Canton. I go take a look at every job within 24 hours, quote it. And as of this point, just FYI, two things. One, I saw letter yesterday that lumber and building products are up 73%. So if you're quoting something, you better add to it, because what you thought you walked in and what you're paying for is two different things. Secondly, the window manufacturers are in major flux right now, and we're looking at getting windows late June, early July. Thank you very much.
Wow. That's 70-some%. Is that for all materials, all building materials?
This was from American Express, and I assume that's correct.
Yeah.
Especially lumber and plywood. It's just exploded.
So it seems to me that new home building is going to be very much curtailed.
Well, let's put it this way. I'm on the road, like I said, I'm on the road every day. It doesn't look like it's curtailed at all. It looks like that they're just raising the prices of these houses that they're building because they've got to cover their cost.
Well, if your materials have gone up 70%, wouldn't that, I mean, your house, instead of being 400, it would be $1 million.
Well, here's what happened. I deal with a major general contractor in Cleveland. At Thanksgiving time, he bid a framing package of $70,000. Last Friday, I was talking to him. It went to $112,000.
Wow.
Wow. Chris, is steel affected too?
Yes.
My.
Okay, well, and there's shortages all over the place.
Okay, well, we'll have to hope that all this corrects itself somehow.
Oh.
Anyway, let's move on. Now, we're going to say good morning to one of our favorites. That would be Mike Bentley. Good morning, Mike. Ask Mike. And there it is.
Good morning. If you are upset, concerned, bewildered about your home building prospects or the cost of building materials, talk to Chris. If you have questions about your insurance needs, give me a call, especially if you're considering a move maybe to another state, or you're considering to be a snowbird, buy residential. We write in 38 states. It's interesting, this past week, I had some clients that I insured from Beechwood who moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and they contacted me this week. They're moving back to Solon after 2 years. Through that time frame, they remained my clients. As they were in Arizona, I insured them, and they're coming back here. I'm going to insure them. I just had a client that moved from Ohio to Florida, and they were shocked because they were doing some shopping for auto insurance down there as to the cost of auto insurance. A lot of people don't realize we have it good in Ohio. We have the third lowest auto insurance rates in the country. So if you are someone who's planning on making some major transitions, give me a call. Ask Mike from the Brooks and Stafford Company. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, and thanks for being here. And thanks for being the expert that you are in that field. Thank you. Okay, and now one of our favorite guests would be Ari Tayomi. We're so glad to see him today. Good morning, Ari. Let's hear from you.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm Ari Tayomi. My company is Lasting Impression Direct. We are a full-time, full-service printing and direct mail company. We work with the companies, and we don't do retail. And we try to help company to get more customers who will pay them more money more often. Ari Tayomi, Lasting Impression Direct.
Excellent. Thank you, Ari, and thank you for being here. It's wonderful to see you. And now we'd like to introduce Julie Bollinger. Good morning, Judy. How are you?
Morning, Tom. I'm doing fine.
Great.
Thank you. We just got in from Florida a couple of days ago. It was a terrible trip home. It took like 3 hours and it was a rough flight and didn't get into bed till 2 a.m.
Oh, my.
Yeah, but it was, I mean, my husband's going, no, it's not. It wasn't, because it was only rough in the very beginning. But that was enough to make my stomach for the whole trip.
Sure.
But anyway, I am Judy Bollinger, the wordsmith, and I can make you look good on paper. I do website content, and right now I'm doing a lot of people who are rewording their websites because it's stale and old and it's been around for a few years. And they want it to look fresh and new. So I'm doing a lot of that. I'm doing a lot of blogging so that people keep coming to your website. It's another way to get people to remember you. Is to sending out your mailing list is very important. Send out and say, look, come and read about. I just did a blog for a elder care attorney, and it was all on vitamin C and preventing eye conditions. And I called it I see you, do you, capital C, me. And Trina's not here. She likes clever titles. And that's the kind of thing that I'm doing. Also, email marketing. I'm now working with a dentist who's moving his location, and he wants a letter out to all of his patients. So that's another big field that I'm in. And that's it. That's all I have to say, I think.
That's great. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to cover how to avoid, what is ransomware and how to avoid it. So I'm going to share this screen with you folks. Boom. And we'll pick this. Okay, what is ransomware and how to avoid becoming a victim? It sort of follows in the same pattern as viruses, Trojan, malware, all of that. But in the past couple of weeks, we've been inundated with the Colonial Pipeline and what they've done. So it's become quite a big deal with ransomware. So we'll start with, what is ransomware? Ransomware is one of the biggest security problems on the internet and one of the biggest forms of cybercrime that organizations face today. Ransomware is a form of malicious software, malware, that encrypts files and documents on anything from a single PC all the way up to an entire network, including servers. Victims can often be left with few choices. They can either regain access to their encrypted network by paying a ransom to the criminals behind the ransomware, or restore from backups or hope that there is a decryption key freely available, or start again from scratch. Some ransomware infections start with someone inside an organization clicking on what looks like an innocent attachment that, when opened, downloads the malicious payload and encrypts the network. Other much larger ransomware campaigns use software exploits and flaws, cracked passwords, and other vulnerabilities to gain access to organizations using weak points such as internet-facing servers or remote desktop logins to gain access. The attackers will secretly hunt through the network until they control as much as possible before encrypting all they can. Here's 6 tips on how to avoid ransomware attacks. I don't know if the print's too small for you. Avoid suspicious links. We've heard most of us in our meetings on Tuesday talk about, if you get an email from somebody you don't know, the best thing is don't open it. Don't download the images because malware and ransomware can come in on an image. And certainly don't click on any links. Avoid suspicious links. If you don't know who's sending a link, or if you doubt the person is actually who they claim to be, don't click that link. It's likely infected. Number 2, pause before sending personal information. Often, a cyber attack is obvious in hindsight. Before filling out personal information, ask yourself whether the form you're using is legitimate. Number 3, install firewalls and antivirus software. These basic technologies are an effective line of defense against cyber attacks. But we know that the several versions of firewall, hardware and software. I'm sure Colonial Pipeline had all of that in place, and yet the hackers were quite up to the challenge of getting through all of that. Number 4, quickly patch vulnerabilities. It's easy to ignore software update messages, but the consequences of not patching can be brutal. I know a lot of us get Windows updates and we choose not to because some years ago, Windows Vista, Windows 7, we would get updates and the machine would stop operating like we're used to. And so we just stopped updating. But these days, you're going to need to update your applications as well as your operating system. Number 5, educate your employees, if you have any, or yourself. All the defenses in the world are meaningless if your employees or you don't know how to spot a threat. Teach yourself and them how to identify and avoid common cyber attacks, including ransomware. And number 6, test your employees or yourself. Education without testing is like, well, education without testing. Check whether the information's sticking with annual phishing tests. Phishing is sending you something that would make you want to click on it. It's pronounced phishing with PH so that it doesn't get confused. Anyway, those are the top 6 things to avoid. Now, here's that Colonial Restart supply that I wanted to, while we look at that, I'm going to once again read our pull quote. Colonial Pipeline has made substantial progress in safely restarting our pipeline system and can report that product delivery has commenced in a majority of the markets we service. By midday today, we project that each market we service will be receiving product from our system. The green segments on this map are operational, meaning product delivery has commenced. Blue lines will be operational later today. Now, the Colonial Pipeline paid $5 million in ransom, and they also kept a vicious cycle turning. Stopping payments would go a long way to stopping ransomware, but the choice is never quite so easy. Nearly a week after ransomware attack led Colonial Pipeline to halt fuel distribution on the East Coast. Reports emerged on Friday that the company paid 75 Bitcoin ransom, worth as much as $5 million, depending on the time of payment, in an attempt to restore service more quickly. And while the company was able to restart operations Wednesday night, the decision to give in to hackers' demands will only embolden other groups going forward. Real progress against the ransomware epidemic, experts say, will require more companies to say no. Not to say that doing so is easy. The FBI and other law enforcement groups have long encouraged ransomware victims from paying digital extortion fees. But in practice, many organizations resort to paying. They either don't have the backups and other infrastructure necessary to recover, otherwise, can't or don't want to take the time to recover on their own, or decide that it's cheaper to just quietly pay the ransom and move on. Ransomware groups increasingly vet their victims' financials before springing their traps, allowing them to set the highest possible price that their victims can still potentially afford. In the case of Colonial Pipeline, the dark side ransomware group attacked the company's business network rather than the more sensitive operational technology networks that control the pipeline. But Colonial took down its OT network as well as an attempt to contain the damage, increasing the pressure to resolve the issue and resume the flow of fuel along the East Coast. Another potential factor in the decision, first reported by Zero Day, was that the company's billing system had been infected with ransomware, so it had no way to track fuel distribution and bill customers. Advocates of zero tolerance for ransom payments hoped that Colonial Pipeline's proactive shutdown was a sign that the company would refuse to pay. Reports on Wednesday indicated that the company had a plan to hold out, but numerous subsequent reports on Thursday led by Bloomberg, confirmed that the 75 Bitcoin ransom had been paid. Colonial Pipeline did not return a request for comment from Wired, that's a magazine where this article came from, about the payment. It is still unclear whether the company paid the ransom soon after the attack or days later. As fuel prices rose and lines at gas stations grew, I can't say I'm surprised, but it's certainly disappointing, says Brett Callow, a threat analyst at antivirus company Emisoft. Unfortunately, it'll keep United States critical infrastructure providers in the crosshairs. If a sector proves to be profitable, they'll keep on hitting it. In a briefing on Thursday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki emphasized in general that the U.S. government encourages victims not to pay. Others in the administration struck a more measured note. Colonial is a private company and will defer information regarding their decision on paying a ransom to them. Deputy National Secretary, Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technologies. In a press briefing, she said that on Monday. She added that ransomware victims face a very difficult situation and they have to just balance often the cost benefit when they have no choice with regards to paying a ransom. Researchers and policymakers have struggled to produce comprehensive guidance about ransom payments. If every victim in the world suddenly stopped paying ransom and held firm, the attacks would quickly stop because there would be no incentive for criminals to continue. But coordinating a mandatory boycott seems impractical, researchers say, and likely would result in more payments happening in secret. When the ransom gang Evil Corps attacked Garmin last summer, the company paid the ransom through an intermediary. It's not unusual for large companies to use a middleman for payments. But Garmin's situation was particularly noteworthy because Evil Corps had been sanctioned by the U.S. government. For some organizations, their business could be completely destroyed if they don't pay the ransom, says Kate Nichols, Director of Intelligence at the security firm Red Canary. If payments aren't allowed, you'll just see people being quieter about making the payments. Prolonged shutdowns of hospitals, critical infrastructure, and municipal services also threaten more than just finances. When lives are literally at stake, a principled stand against hackers quickly drops off of the priorities list. Nichols herself recently participated in a public-private effort to establish comprehensive United States-based ransomware recommendations. The group could not agree on definitive guidance about if and when to pay. The ransomware task force discussed this extensively, she says. There were a lot of important things that the group came to a consensus on, and payment was one where there was no consensus. As part of cybersecurity executive order signed by President Joseph Biden on Wednesday, the Department of Homeland Security will create a cyber safety review board to investigate and debrief significant cyber attacks. That could at least help more payments be made in the open, giving the general public a fuller sense of the scale of the ransomware problem. But while the board has incentives to entice private organizations to participate, it may still need expanded authority from Congress to demand total transparency. Meanwhile, the payments will continue, and so will the attacks. You shouldn't pay, but if you don't have a choice and you'll be out of business forever, you're gonna pay, says Adam Myers, Vice President of Intelligence at the security firm CrowdStrike. In my mind, the only thing that's going on to really drive change is organizations not getting caught in the first place. When the money disappears, these guys will find some other way to make money, and then we'll have to deal with that. For now, though, ransomware remains a very high threat, and Colonial Pipeline's $5 million payment will only egg on cyber criminals. It was a little long, but I think it was important. Now, the damage caused by ransomware is some quick 97% of phishing emails deliver ransomware. Mostly they come in on emails. You'll see a pound sign there. You can just you could think of a dollar sign being there. 70% of infective businesses have paid the ransom. Can you imagine? All we hear is don't pay, but 70% of infected businesses have paid that ransom. 42% of ransomware victims recovered their data. So what do we get from that? 70% of them paid, and only 42% of them have recovered data. Amazing. Okay. Somewhere between 200 and 10,000 is the price of the ransom for consumers. More likely than not, your number is going to be between those two. 50%, more than 50% of these companies paid between 10,000 to 40,000. And 1 in 4 paying users never recovered their data, even though they paid. So we're back to how many presentations have we had talking about backing up your data? Back up your data in 3 different places in 2 different mediums, and you're regularly, like daily. This way, this is not an issue for you. When you get your screen and it says the FBI has locked your computer, you can laugh it off. You can reformat, or you could try to get it off if you like. But the main thing is you have all your data and you'll be back up in no time. Okay, ransomware. Here's how hackers take your data hostage. Malicious code blocks access to the data in your computer. You receive an infected file, typically attached to an email or a URL. We saw that most of them come in that way. If you open it, you've let malicious code into your computer. You can see the arrow now go to the center, the danger sign. Now, without the key, all the files on your computer are locked. You can't get to them. You try to open them. It says, So in a matter of minutes, your files are locked out of reach. Then a message appears when you try to open a file demanding a ransom to unlock your data. Payment on in the online currency Bitcoin helps hackers cover their tracks. If you don't pay, your encrypted files are lost. If you pay, you will pay your ransom to an anonymous recipient hiding in the dark net. Normally, you will get the key to unlock the encrypted data an hour or so later. Now, here's a sample we have here. Here's what it can cost you to get your data back. The equivalent of 1,500 euros to unlock the contents of a computer. A Los Angeles hospital had to pay $17,000, which is considerably less than $5 million, but nevertheless, $17,000 to recover control of its data this past February. Unbelievable. Okay, so we'll look at this. If you are infected, if the worst has come to pass and your computer has become infected with malware, there is still hope for your computer. If you can figure out the location of the file, you can try and restart your computer using safe mode and delete it where it won't activate. Your security programs will likely be disabled by it, so you cannot expect them to help you at this time. In a worst case scenario, you might need to restore the computer to a previous time or even reinstall the operating system. You can also try running a scanner program or some other sort of security device via a USB drive. The malware hasn't touched. If you boot with a USB drive, that can help you. There's other ways, but here's a few. Here's our summary. Chances are you're going to face a ransomware attack at some point. The key is in making sure you know what to do when it happens and being able to restore your data securely once your system is cleansed of all traces of the malware. So that's what we've learned. If you back up your data in 3 places, 2 different methods, put it on a jump drive, burn a DVD, maybe you'll have an external drive or in the cloud, save your data. Save your data. Even if you don't save your programs like Word, Excel, all of that, save the data that you've created with those programs or your photos or your music or your videos. That's what we've learned. So if you're backed up to the minute, then you have nothing to worry about. That's why this thing with Colonial Pipeline is really a head scratcher, because how could they have let themselves be that vulnerable? Well, if they can, we certainly can. So we got to look out for it. And that's what we need to do. So there you have it. What's ransomware and some ways of avoiding it. And there we have the end. Thank you so much. Now we could talk about it. Thank you, Judy. Have any one of us been subjected to any of this? No?
Not yet, thankfully, but I am a little confused on, Jeff knows, because I have this little blue backup hard drive that works, I think, all the time. But I always get a message in the upper right corner of my Mac telling me that Time Machine hasn't backed up. And I forget what Time Machine is. Is that another place I'm supposed to be backing up?
Time Machine is an automatic backup. That's why they call it a time machine.
No. Well,
The problem with that is if it's connected to the computer that has the ransomware, that's like being on the same network, and it may or it may not go and get everything that's connected by USB. So it's
where
good.
is Time Machine? Is that's an internal backup?
Yes. Well, the Time Machine is a software package that will back up your hard drive to, if you have an external hard drive, it will back up to that. The Time Machine, you set it up. It's an app.
Okay, but Jeff, that's different than the little blue box I have. Okay, then Time Machine obviously isn't working because it reminds me every day that it's not backing up.
It may be that the drive is loose, not connected properly. I can take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if they fail, hard drives fail.
Yeah.
The drive needs to be replaced. But
And
it's not enough of a backup to protect you against ransomware. You need an offsite backup.
yeah, you need something disconnected from that computer. What the Time Machine will help you, or any network backup or USB connected backup, is if your hard drive, the main hard drive, seizes or it no longer boots. And so you'll be able to plug your USB drive where your data is located into another machine and read your data. But if you're hacked, it may hack that also. And if you unplug that and plug it into another machine, the ransomware may move along and infect the next machine.
Tom?
Yes, Jeff.
Do you have any clients that you've worked with that have been infected with ransomware?
Yes, I'm sorry to say, 3 major and a bunch of minor ones. The minor ones are the ones that you could get out of by the suggestion in the PowerPoint was to boot into safe mode, and I was able to probably 10 times in the past 10 years, but 3 of them were major, and one of them had the absolute FBI, and before they called me, they paid the money. They paid $249 to get control of their machine again.
That's not bad.
No. And one of my customers was an older woman. I think she was 80. And she actually gave the people on the phone where, there's a phone number on the ransomware message, called them, and she gave them her account number and routing number for the checking account. Yeah, and they charged her $499. Now, when I got there, they already had taken the money, but the funny part is they took $499 and no more. So when I got there, I said, well, the first thing we have to do is call the bank, and you're going to change all your numbers. Otherwise, they're going to show up tomorrow and come dipping again. What's stopping them?
Right.
But in any case, they took the $499 that they told her they were going to take. So, and she asked me if I could get it back. No.
Oh,
Who knows where they are? They could be in some grass hut in Bimini.
They were trustworthy criminals. They only took what they said they would.
Well, that's what I meant. That's why I mentioned early on, there's honor among thieves with these
Yeah.
cyber attackers. You know, Colonial Pipeline paid $5 million and they got their software back to be able to bill for the gasoline. Well, what happens if they didn't get it back? Then there'll be less likely, other companies less likely to pay. So you give me the 5 million, I'll give you your stuff back. So that's what they did. It's
Oh, I
amazing.
got a question. This sounds awful fishy to me.
Which part?
The Colonial Pipeline. I mean, come on, they got to have backup. They got to have everything.
You would think. You would
I mean,
think they would have plenty of backup for their
this
finance.
This sounds really, really off the wall, you know, something that a major corporation would never do.
Well, as you saw in this little PowerPoint, lots of people, lots of companies, corporations pay the ransom.
Is that mostly because they aren't confident they'll figure out how to get it back on their own? So they just pay it to quickly get operating again?
It seems to me from what I've written and read today, it's because it's expedient.
Mhm.
Like it said, they turned over the money and within an hour they had the key to get in and get all their financial software back up and running. So if they would have
cheaper
put
for them as well, it's less expensive for paying to have it restored, and every day or every hour that they're not able to pump, they're losing money. So they look at it from a dollar and cent point of view. Now,
Exactly.
if they ask for $50 million, they may have not paid the ransom.
right.
That's why this 5 million seems like chump change when you're talking about providing fuel for the entire East Coast.
Right.
So it's a reasonable amount of money. Time is money. They're losing money by not pumping fuel. So it was easier and more expedient for them to pay.
That's it. That's exactly it.
But
Expedient.
Tom's right. It sets a terrible precedent for everyone to just keep doing this. And it'll just be a thing like that happens now. You know, a kidnapping that
Well,
people are willing to pay to get it back.
You know, Chris has a great point, because if you sort of look at the history of ransom utility companies, it's been going on throughout the world. Brazil, Spain, Italy, whether it be natural gas, whether it be petrol or fuel, whether it be utilities. So again, you would think that a company in the United States pumping and responsible for maybe a quarter of all the gas transported would have a little bit better. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there are a lot of questions there.
We're missing an aspect, and it's extortion. Sometimes they'll steal the data, not just encrypt it, and they might say, look, we're going to release this or sell this data to other people if you don't pay us. So there's another level to this. And this happened to Sony. They got their network hacked and they stole contract information and released a lot of damaging information about both the actors and Sony itself. The world found out that certain people were being paid because they were never telling people what they were being paid, and that certain people found out they were being paid a lot less than their coworkers because the information got out. So the extortion aspect of ransomware is also an issue. If you're a small company, it may not be a big deal, but if you're a big company, you could have some skeletons in your closet that you're willing to pay for.
We'll probably hear about corporations as larger than Colonial Pipeline and what they've done to make sure that they're not put in that position. Now that this has happened, and while 5 million may be chump change to a gas supplier, it's still, I mean, you know, that's still a lot of money. $1 million has been a lot of money forever, and it's still a lot of money. So it seems to me that what they'll do, the companies will do, will take that money, instead of paying ransomware, they'll create backups of backups of backups. And they can encrypt it themselves, much the way Carbonite encrypts your data. If you have a Carbonite account and all the data leaves your machine and goes up into the cloud to them, all that data is encrypted. Nobody can log in unless they have the actual ID and password to decrypt it. So if somebody got that load of files, it'd be useless. Much the way an Apple phone is useless, they won't give out that. And I think they were tested with that a few years ago, weren't they? When somebody said, I don't know, was somebody going to die unless they gave up the information of how to get in the phone? It was a big deal, and they still said no. So saying no is absolutely the way to go. It's just that there must be something to this. Maybe Chris is onto something. There must be something to this, that these people paid that $5 million rather than going to their backups. Or in the case of a Windows computer, you could go to your saving an earlier version of your computer, and you could every once a week, every couple of times a week, you could create a restore point, it's called, and then you could restore from that time when there was no malware or ransomware on your computer. That would be important.
Does that work for Macs too? I remember that from my Windows days.
Yeah. It would seem to me, I'm not sure, because Macs are less vulnerable because there's so few of them. It's not worth a ransom, not necessarily ransomware, but it's not worth them taking your data or bringing down a Mac, because there's less than 6% of the computers in the world are Macs. They're going to want to do Windows. But this extends beyond that. This could be into the Ubuntu and all those Apache software and all of that, which is internet server software, which is not Windows. So they're encrypting on a much more base level. So in any case, I'm sure there is something that you can use that would mimic a restore point on your Mac. It has to be. Yeah. So for today, before we wrap it up, I want Scott Morrison to say good morning to all of us, and we're going to let him do a minute. Please give us a minute, Scott.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Morrison, company's Discovery Photo. I am a full-time, full-service photographer, have been for 30 years now. This is my 30th anniversary. Wow. Unbelievable to me. Just imagine what it is to you. We do everything from legal, corporate, industrial, architectural photography. We do a lot of modeling portfolios, business headshots, and headshots for actors here in the Cleveland area. Also very active within the movie industry and working on a feature film right now called Leviticus, and was involved in a film festival this weekend, and I had 4 films in there and 1 trailer, and we took home 2 big awards, Best Actress and the Women to Women Award. So we did well with that, and the films were well received, and they're off to further film festivals. My name is Scott Morrison, company's Discovery Photo, when image counts.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Love that shirt and love the sunglasses. You're Hollywood bound, although you're doing pretty well right here. Hollywood came to you.
That's it. Okay. Hollywood and Cleveland.
Absolutely. Cleveland, a wonderful place to live. So with that said, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for watching till the end of the video. And you probably should watch it again, because this is important stuff. And this way you can know what ransomware is and some tips on how to avoid it. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. We're going to stick around and talk a little bit, but you tubers, we're going to say goodbye for today. Okay. All right. We'll see you next Tuesday morning around 7:30 or so. Thanks a lot. Bye.